Oil and gas prices have risen sharply as the Iran conflict threatens to choke one of the world's most vital shipping routes. The Strait of Hormuz is the narrow waterway through which about a fifth of the world's oil flows. Now, Iranian state media is reporting Iran's Revolutionary Guard has declared the strait closed and warned that Iran will fire on any ship trying to pass through. Commercial traffic through the region has already dramatically slowed since the US and Israel attacked Iran.
So there's uncertainty around the Strait of Hormuz. There's uncertainty around supply shocks in future. We've just seen Qatar saying that they're temporarily pausing some of their LNG production. Saudis also paused some of theirs, and some other countries in the region, including Israel, have also shut down some of their production capability. So it's all about uncertainty. And we're also hearing that some boats are struggling to get insurance to travel through the region at the moment, which means that they can't transport their goods, some of which is LNG.
Analysts say Tehran's threat to completely block the Strait of Hormuz would hurt Iran as well, since all of its oil passes through the route. But that supply worries are also causing significant disruption.
Other things that Iran is obviously can use and potentially might use is mining the Hormuz Strait, so therefore, apart from closing it to the international trade, but also mining it, so therefore bringing the cost to the regional states, to the international actors. So this is also a possibility that Iran can utilize as all of them as part of this asymmetric warfare.
ABC business reporter Daniel Ziffer joins us now. Dan, when will Australians notice this difference at the petrol pump?
Oh, they might notice it quite soon. Even though the petrol that's in the tank underneath the station goes into the small tank in your car was actually bought in Singapore about 6 weeks ago. Those price fluctuations, those expectations do feed into higher petrol prices. Iran produces only about 5% of the world's oil, but the area is really strategically important for energy beyond petrol, but also into liquefied natural gas. So we heard in that package there about just how much flows through the Strait of Hormuz, which has like a little chicane in it as it kind of squeezes between the United Arab Emirates and Iran. So already that's having an impact, and it's going to have a broader impact, because whilst we think of fuel as something that we use to put in our cars and make them go, it's actually used for a much broader range of industrial applications in making things like plastics as an input to things like fertilizer we use to grow our food. So all of that feeds into what are going to be longer term costs that Australian consumers will feel.
What might be some of the longer term impacts?
Well, beyond that, of course, we have the impact on global shipping. So we're already hearing more difficult to get insurance. Ships have to use more fuel to go further, to go around conflict zones. So all of those prices do get added into everything. You know, for example, in Australia, we import every single car now, about 1 million a year. You know, lots of the things that we buy and lots of the ingredients for things that we make here, do come from overseas. So global shipping, insurance problems, increased fuel prices, all of this kind of floats the boats essentially on costs that we can't avoid as consumers and as businesses because they'll be passed on through that global uncertainty sparked by this conflict in this very specific part of the world.
And Dan, how is all of this likely to affect interest rates?
Well, the Reserve Bank is very concerned about inflation. That is the pace of prices rising, how much they grow. They want prices to only rise between 2 and 3% a year, what they call their target band. But they've failed at that because all of this pressure, this inflationary pressure, means that prices have been rising closer to almost 4%. They're about 3.8 at the moment. So to try and get that inflation down, the RBA uses the biggest tool that it has at its disposal, which is to raise interest rates. It makes money more expensive. It takes cash out of the economy. And theoretically, that gives consumers less power. They trim back. A lot of the costs that are coming from this kind of conflict really can't be dealt with by consumers. They're things that are happening to them. They're not things consumers can make a decision about. They can't, reduce their food cost because fertilizer costs have gone up, because petrol costs have gone up. They can only make a really small difference, the amount of petrol they consume in their car to commute to their work. So all of these things, consumers have very little ability to impact, but they will happen to them. And then probably because of that, the RBA makes it more likely likely, not so much at their imminent meeting, which is happening in 2 weeks from today, but more likely at the May meeting, where they're more likely to increase interest rates, increase the cost of money, try and take some of that heat out of the economy, even if the heat is coming from overseas rather from Australian consumers having too much money.
Well, as you've mentioned, we've already seen those spikes in world wholesale fuel prices, with Brent crude jumping by almost 9%, the highest it's been in months. And motoring groups are warning that we could see the impact of that within a week at the petrol pump. Now, it's normally the case that we see some of those world shocks flowing through to the Bowser within about 7 to 10 days. But at the moment, we're already seeing some of those price increases. For example, here behind me, the cost of unleaded is already well north of $2 a litre. In some places south of Brisbane, it's even nudging up towards $2.20. But the NRMA is urging motorists not to panic, and they're also warning oil companies not to be opportunistic and use this as an excuse to jack up prices early.